We've since been joined by the Special Advisor to the Lagos State Governor on the SDGs and investment in the Office of the Sustainable Development Goals, Ms. Sholakbe Hammond. Thanks a lot for joining us. I know it's been a tough one trying to get in, but you did make it. So thanks for that. So this really belongs to you. It is your alley, your forte. So just, I know you've been listening to the conversation backstage, and just tell us, so, in terms of impact, how do you see it from your office?
And thank you very much for having me. Very excited to be here. In terms of impact of the SDGs and the role of the private sector in that, I think Mr. Chukwuma is exactly right. We need the private sector. So in Lagos, we embrace the private sector, and I think it shows. I think it's one of the reasons why Lagos has been able to progress dramatically, way beyond what even the government can do. And we continue to engage the private sector from a development perspective and from an investment perspective. And that's one of the reasons why in Lagos, we have actually put them together in the same office. We've mainstreamed the SDGs, we've made it front and center because it's our lens for looking at investments. And so for us, it's extremely important. As you said, I've been listening, along with the program, and I've heard all that has been said with regards to impact. And yes, it's not a great place where we are right now. But for me, I'm hopeful. So first of all, almost everything that comes now, everyone's talking about how it impacts the SDGs. And I think that's the first step. We need to really mainstream this whole thing and have this be a lens that everyone is interested in and passionate about. And the second thing is then the collaboration piece, which is why we're here today, and the role of the private sector. As Mr. Chukwuma has said, there's very little that the government can do to achieve those goals. If we take all the money Lagos is going to make over the next 10 years and put it together to achieve one goal, it won't be enough. And so we really do need the private sector.
Yeah, but let me ask. Yes, you say you do need them, but you find that there's a bit of a foot drag. They don't actually take the lead as you would want them to. Is it a fair comment when you hear them say, yes, private sector investment is investment. It isn't charity, and it isn't just about doing a good deed. So they actually need to get something out of it. Is that a fair comment that you hear?
It's not only a fair comment, that's actually the perspective I welcome. And it's possible that I'm biased because I was in private sector up until a year and a half ago myself. But I think that is the sustainable path to growth and progress. Years ago, the focus of business, and I remember when I did my MBA in 2009, the argument was profit maximization is the rule of business. So for businesses themselves to have evolved to the point where business is being seen as a force for good is actually a dramatic amount of progress. I also think that we won't get anywhere trying to get businesses to do good from the charity perspective. They will devote a maximum 3-5% of their income. That's not what we need. We need a dramatic and radical change of perspective. Their business has to become that thing that generates the developmental outcome. So it has to be let's stop using money to collect waste or plastic. Let's instead reorient businesses to find a way to eliminate plastic. It's good for the business, it's good for the environment, it's good for society, it's good for all of us. And so I think that really is the approach to champion. And I find businesses aren't necessarily mercenary about it. They are, though, looking for something that is sustainable, because you find out you do charity, even if you put that fund in there for 20 years, the day you stop, that model dies. But with the business-first approach, it doesn't. What government can then do is, and some of the things we're looking at, to find a way to create sustainable incentives. So for example, in Nigeria, we don't have the triple bottom line approach, and that's something we'll be looking to create. There has to be value to some of these companies as an incentive to others that want to do good.
All right, so let me take you to Ms. Eze. I know we have her, Ms. Eze, there virtually. Just from what Ms. Hammond has said, there are no quick fix solutions, and this really should be incentive-based. Looking at your crystal ball, as she's done, what sort of incentives would you think private operators like yourself would need to actually realize that the clock is ticking? And I don't know. What do you think?
It's a good question. I think, one, it's similar to what we've shared previously, this question about what are the policies and are they going to be not just stable and sustainable, but will they actually be applied evenly across the population so that there are not favorites being chosen. So I think that for me is number one. The other one is, of course, we've talked trade policy. You had some images about counting of dollars. Forex is another big issue, which really comes up as we're talking to investors who say, okay, I'm going to invest into Nigeria. How do I get money back if I'm coming from outside of the country? And then I think there is a need to really say, where is the government focused? is it really listening to the youth who make up significant portion of the population, more than 60% of the population, as we've seen in recent months, given the protests? Do we really care about what's happening to our youth and what is going to happen to them over the course of the next 5 and 10 years? And then women, for me, I think is the other question. What is the government doing truly to support women? And that's both in terms of initiatives like Elect Her and others who are looking at getting women into public office, but then also this question about how are women being excluded across the range of different SDG goals that we care about. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done. On the private sector incentive side, I think what I've seen in Nigeria over the many years that I've been working in Nigeria is that there is an inequality in how those incentives are applied. So I would be quite concerned to see incentives that are, able to be manipulated, as Mr. Shukuma had referenced previously. So there's a question about what are those appropriate incentives that might drive private sector investment. I think things like having first loss guarantee instruments like we've seen from InfraCredit and infrastructure are already helping to unlock that potential. We're seeing institutions like the Development Bank of Nigeria investing in these types of guarantee facilities. I think those can definitely help. And if we could find other ways to pool capital, as we've seen from initiatives like LSETF, we can see other initiatives like that coming. I think that will very much help, especially addressing issues like the high interest rates, like the high risk of investing into the market. And then, of course, this question about foreign exchange. So I think initiatives like that are much more interesting than potentially policies that could pick and choose the winners rather than have a level playing field for all.
I know we're going to have to take this back to Terry very quickly, but very, very quickly, let me just ask you, Ms. Hammond. She talked about inequality in terms of how these incentives are applied. Is that what you see as well? Quickly now, because we need to take a quick break.
Yes, so I think it's a general problem that we're all working to address. So inequality, again, do you focus on the top few businesses or do you find a way to include the smaller businesses? How do you support women and children? And I'm very happy that she mentioned LSETF. As she said, it's institutions like that we need to create. We need to create something similar for agriculture, something similar for technology, which we have. We have the Lagos State Science Research and Innovation Council, and we have the Lagos Innovates program also under LSETF. And I think it's very much work in progress. But I think for sure the Lagos State government is listening and creating those structures that we want to see.